I'm not marriage material. Nope. Get somebody else to do it. I am not marriage material and I am not ashamed to say it. I experienced a 10-year marriage, had my children, love my babies. They are teenagers now. But after having so many life experiences and plenty of dating experiences, I know what works for me and what doesn't. I know that there are a lot of people out there, both men and women, who talk a lot about this idea of whether or not a person is, a high value man or a high value woman, or trying to assign value to people based on their readiness for the traditional type of relationship that we're all used to seeing or being taught and told about. But after experiencing that for myself, I recognize that that is the last thing that anybody should be doing. If you are someone who believes in the institution of traditional marriage, if you understand the history and the purpose of it, where it came from, and the basic ideas that it's founded upon, and you've decided for yourself that that's something that you want in your life, that is wonderful for you. But here is the reason why I am not and do not ever again want to consider myself or hope to be. I never again hope to be traditional marriage material. Now, I have been single since I left my marriage. I've been single for about 6 years now. And in that time, I realized that, first of all, when I got married the first time around, I genuinely wanted it then because I guess I didn't really know what else to want. I had been taught by well-meaning parents and religious leaders around me, people in my community, that marriage was the number one method of establishing a good family life, of bringing children into the world who would be stable and responsible and happy human beings. I, of course, didn't think that it was going to be some kind of a utopia, but I was taught what a lot of us are taught about marriage being the most honorable experience that two people who claim to love each other can embark upon. I did not realize at the time, because I didn't take the time to study the history. I wasn't curious about it. I didn't feel any need to. I took the ideas that were handed down to me. And, it wasn't until after I left that relationship that I started to dig into the history of marriage and its origins. I learned that marriage was created particularly for the wealthy as an institution to help them preserve their wealth. Once patriarchal society, institutions, structures, religious structures, patriarchal religions really took center stage in the world, the people who upheld those institutions and were the forerunners of teaching those ideas to the masses came up with the institution of marriage as a way of helping kings and queens, noble people, people of great means, helping those wealthy men in particular have a way of guaranteeing, knowing who their children were. It was an insurance policy for them to have some assurance that the children that they would be passing down their wealth and their legacy to were actually biologically their children. A lot of times y'all know, you don't watch Game of Thrones or whatever kinds of historical period movies and plenty of documentaries. A lot of people out there love that stuff. So that oftentimes people wanted to keep their wealth in the family. They wanted to keep their power in the family. So not only was marriage a tool that they used to do that, to make sure that one man could guarantee, okay, this woman is the woman that's having my children at this particular point in time, so I know that these are my kids. They also use inbreeding and, incest and stuff like that to keep it in the family. But we talk about marriage. So, you know, this is not to say that because it was created as a tool for wealth preservation that it's a bad thing. Absolutely not. But what also was foundational to the idea was the idea of possession. Because, of course, this was at a time when patriarchal religions and patriarchal societal institutions had taken center stage in the world. And so the idea was not just to have a woman as your wife or as your companion, but to possess her. And marriage was a way of purchasing a woman who you could guarantee would be the mother of your children. You could have significant control over her body, significant control of the creation, the proliferation of your legacy, your children. Of course, as time went on and as history rolled on and women gained access to more opportunities in the society and in the workplace, we reach our modern age where these ideas are not so strictly applied. But unfortunately, it's still at the foundation of what the marriage institution is. And because this idea of ownership still, it's like the blood running through the veins of the body of this idea of marriage, it still very much informs the way that people look at the idea of getting married and being in a long-term relationship and having a spouse. It comes up even in scripture where, if anybody out there is familiar with biblical teachings, when we were growing up in the church and getting ready to get married, people were getting married, they were taught that your body is not your own. Your body belongs to your spouse. When it comes to sex, you don't have the right to say no. You don't have the right to deny this other person, access to you. So we see where this idea of you not being a sovereign human being with full agency over your body or your mind starts to take root with this idea of marriage. I created in my own mind over time, I would say these last 6 years, and particularly the last couple of years, of the Renegade Single. And if you go to my website and you read my new book, you'll see, me talk about it. You'll see it dotted in some of the text and some of my blog entries that I'll be writing soon. But I developed this idea of the Renegade Single because there are a lot of people out there who get shamed for not being quote unquote marriage material. There are a lot of people who internalize that shame. Since I have been single, pretty much at every single period of my life where I was unpartnered, and actually, some people, even if they're dating, they consider themselves single as long as they're not married. And I consider that, that's, to me, that's a valid idea too. But when I talk about, being single, I'm talking about just, for the most part, not being in a long-term committed, like life partnership type of setup. I'm sorry, I had to go get my tripod. Holding that thing up was just, for all that time, was just ridiculous. Anyway, I coined the term Renegade Single. First of all, because my last name is Outlaw. And, I just wanted to infuse this idea with a little bit of rebellion, because that's really what the idea is about. It's about helping people to embrace an identity of singlehood that is not full of shame. There are a lot of people walking around out there who are not interested in being married in the traditional sense. Maybe they don't actually want to walk down an altar. They don't want to have a lifelong spouse. They don't want to live with another person. Maybe they do want to be in a long-term committed relationship, but they don't want all of the political and social and religious stuff that comes along with it because it doesn't resonate with them. Maybe, some of these people would like to be married or wouldn't mind being married, but it's not considered to be the pinnacle of adult life. It's not the thing that, it's not the mountaintop that they're waiting to ascend to. That's how I feel about it. And maybe it's because I've been there and done that, and I've had the opportunity to experience the ups and downs of it and to study it and look at other people's experience and recognize that it really doesn't resonate with me, the idea of traditional marriage. But, yeah, what is a renegade single? A renegade single is, like I said, somebody who does not allow themselves to be shamed or to internalize shame along with the idea that they are not married. You are a full, worthwhile, worthy human being, worthy of a full life, able to create a full, fun life. You are not less than because you don't have a partner for whatever reason. Maybe you walked away from a toxic situation. Maybe you were the toxic situation. Maybe you were too selfish, to want to open your life up to another person in that way. Hey, if you were smart enough to figure that out and you realize that you need to stay over here by yourself and maybe just visit with the person you love every now and again, then hey, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There are many ways to live in this world, and there are many ways to love. You just have to find somebody whose manner of loving is compatible with yours. So first and foremost, a renegade single is somebody who says to hell with the idea of being ashamed about the fact that they are not in a traditional marriage. A renegade single is someone who recognizes that love and marriage are not synonymous. They aren't one and the same. And in fact, many of the expectations that come along with marriage, a lot of the ideas that are woven into the marriage structure work counter to love. They are counterproductive in helping people sustain long-term love and passion and sexual interest and just general interest in one another. It imposes such unrealistic and idealistic expectations on both men and women that it suffocates the free flow of love. And when I talk about how it impacts men and women in particular, I'm referring specifically to the prison of gender roles that we have brought into the discussion about marriage and family and even just, short-term relationships with people that you just met. We have done such a wonderful job as human beings at perpetuating the idea that a man is supposed to dominate and a woman is supposed to submit in a relationship, that we can't see outside that myopic viewpoint. We think that there is only one way to create leadership and order within a marriage. And we want to shove people together for life in something that feels more like a prison than a choice. It binds people together, strips away their agency, and makes them subject to rules that they never really examined, so they couldn't possibly have truly agreed to them. I think that it is high time that people who resonate with this message, with this idea, recognize that there is no shame in living a life where you determine what the rules will be for how you will love and live your life long term with a partner. And like I said before, you simply have to be responsible enough, be thoughtful enough, be mature enough, be patient enough to find someone who resonates with that idea and to communicate clearly with people as you go along so that You can weed out the ones who don't. If a successful, truly loving long-term relationship is what you want. So a renegade single is someone who is not ashamed about being single. They know that they are a fully worthy, worthwhile, whole human being, even if they don't ever walk down an aisle. They know that you can still create a life that is full of love and joy and adventure and fun and community, even if you don't put a ring on your finger in, a commitment ceremony to another human being. You can still have long-term love. A long-term love that is completely valid. It doesn't have to be approved by anyone else. It doesn't have to be considered godly or, worthy of respect by anyone else. If you've established it with someone else in kind, and your hearts connect, and you've had a meeting of the minds, and you have both negotiated the terms of your relationship, and it's valid in the form that you've negotiated it for you, it doesn't need to be valid to anyone else. Now, is that to say that I don't recognize that there are significant benefits in marriage? Obviously, yes. That's why I did it the first time around. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying that it's just some horrible thing and no one should ever do it. I'm saying that you should exercise your full agency. You should take your critical thinking skills into the negotiation within yourself. Before you even decide what kind of relationship you really want to have, you need to examine whether or not these institutions and these ideas that were handed down to you are actually manageable for you. And if it's something that you really want, you are going to have to do that work to go within, to figure out if you are running on indoctrination and social programming and a bunch of ideas about love and marriage and gender that have just been handed down to you, or if they actually really make sense to you. Does it actually really make sense to you that a woman should hand over the authority of her own life and her ability to make her own decisions in submission to a man? Is that the kind of relationship that you want? Are you the kind of man who wants to have to always take the dominant position? Do you want to have to live your life disregarding the thoughts and the ideas and the skills of your spouse just so that you can hold up this banner of saying that you are the dominant leader of the household? Do you want to live your life according to the rules and regulations of your church or your community organization when it comes to your marriage? Do you want people in your business or your methods of making love to each other or paying your bills or raising your children scrutinized down to the letter by people who don't have to walk in your shoes? Or do you want to harness your agency and your God-given sovereignty as an adult human being to sit down and discuss with the person you say you love or you want to spend the rest of your life with and determine what actually works between the two of you? That's, and if you decide that that institution of marriage is not right for you, but you still love this person and, you're willing to spend the rest of your life with them in a partnership that honors who you truly are, that's some renegade shit. If you decide that you don't want to be married at all and you want to live your life in your little one-bedroom apartment with your herb garden out back on the deck, and you want to travel the world, you want to live in Ireland or Puerto Rico 3 months out of the year, and then come back and live on the, West Coast for 3 months and the East Coast for another 2, and travel and enjoy life with friends all over the world and build a community full of people who are fun and eclectic and full of life and ideas, that's some renegade shit. If you decide that you want to have children in a way that is considered unconventional, but you have counted the cost of parenthood and you have put structures in place, or you're working on putting a structure in place to make sure that that child is surrounded, and I mean surrounded, by a community of people who will be attentive to their needs and assist with their cultivation and their development, that's some renegade shit. Because guess what? In all of the research that I did for my new book, Fuck Submission, Ending the Gender Wars for Good, I was surprised to learn that many researchers, psychologists, sociologists, and people who work with children, counselors who work with children, have created countless articles listing the different things that children need when they're growing up in order to become healthy, strong, well-rounded adults, good citizens of the world. In the list of things is, good healthy food, consistent meals, things like someone who is at home after they come home from school, or that can listen to them and ask them about their day, time to play with other children their age and learn how to, develop all of those social skills and have conversation and all of that, education, health and well-being, a stable living environment, not to be moving around all the time, and it's those basic fundamental types of things that these lists always name. But the one thing that I never saw on any of those lists is a nuclear family, a 2-parent household with a leader, provider man, and a submissive woman. That is not to say that I think that a father and a mother are not important to the children. They are absolutely essential. But what is even more important, what is most important, is a loving, stable household where those basic needs are met by people who are fully engaged and caring for the children. Right? It's not about blind adherence to a nuclear family model. If you cannot achieve that with sane, healthy adults who will not be abusive and a horrible influence within the home, if you can't find that other person who is going to be a good parent, if you already have children and you're far from that very narrow, so supposedly perfect ideal, you are like many billions of people around the world from time immemorial who never even heard of a nuclear family, who lived in communities where they developed strong ties between adults in order to care for the children in those communities. You need community. Above all else, you don't need a nuclear family. The nuclear family was an economic idea. So again, these are renegade notions because they go against these ideas that have been handed down to us historically, and these family values ideas that are being revived and regurgitated and pumped heavily to us, through these platforms right now. There are economic and political and psychological reasons for that, and the reasons are not what you're being told. First and foremost, of utmost importance, is your agency and your personal sovereignty as a human being, your right to determine what is right for you. And if the traditional marriage ideal is not right for you, you can decide to live in a way that works for you. And you can still have a full and fulfilling life. Hey, good people, before you run out of this video, hold on. Mark this on your calendar. Put it somewhere in your phone. On January 7th, 2026, I will be featured on the Funky Dineva Live show here on YouTube, talking about my new book, Fuck Submission, Ending the Gender Wars for Good. The book is going to launch that day, and I'm going to have a special sale for everyone who is ready to get it that day. So get ready. Join me in the Garden of Evolution, and let's do the damn thing. This is Inanna Joy, sharing a few of the things I've learned and some things I'm still learning with you. Thanks for stopping by my Garden of Evolution, where we examine what it means to grow, to live, and to love through life's joy, pain, sunshine, or rain. In the Garden of Evolution, you will follow your bliss to your purpose, you will align with your joy, and live well.